In a small town nestled between emerald hills, the sun bathed the streets in a warm glow, giving life to every corner. Among the humble homes and blooming gardens stood a blacksmith's shop, its forge billowing smoke that danced with the wind. Ryan, a man of formidable strength and undeniable talent, hammered iron with an intensity that resonated through the town. His muscles flexed with each swing of the hammer, crafting beautiful works of art that adorned homes and hearts alike. Yet beneath this exterior lay a shadow, a darkness that crept into every facet of his life. Ryan was not just a blacksmith, he was a man ruled by pride and a need for control. His wife, Emily, was the light of his life, a gentle soul with dreams woven into the fabric of their home. She possessed a creativity that spilled over into everything she touched, from the vibrant colors of the flowers she tended to the delicate embroidery she painstakingly crafted. Her laughter was a melody that once filled their small abode, but that melody had faded, overshadowed by the weight of Ryan's demands. As the seasons shifted from vibrant summer to crisp autumn, the warmth in their home dwindled. Emily, who had once danced through life, was becoming a shadow of her former self. Friends and neighbors often whispered in concern as they watched her retreat further into silence, her spirit dimming under Ryan's relentless scrutiny. Though the townsfolk cared, they felt powerless against the force of Ryan's anger. He ruled his household with an iron fist, expecting obedience without question. One evening, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across their home. Emily, her heart heavy with sorrow, found the courage to speak. "Ryan," she began softly, her voice trembling, "I feel lost. Please let me be the woman I once was." Her plea hung in the air, filled with desperation. Ryan, however, responded with scorn, his voice like a thundercloud ready to unleash a storm. "You are mine," he replied sharply. "You will obey me." The words struck Emily like a blow, piercing through her already fragile heart. It was a simple statement that embodied the power he wielded over her, reducing her to a mere possession. With each passing day, Ryan's temper festered, fed by his own insecurities. Emily grew quieter, retreating into the corners of their home, her laughter replaced by a haunting silence. She tried to hold on to her dreams, but they slipped through her fingers like grains of sand, leaving only the harsh reality of her existence. As winter approached, the chill in the air mirrored the coldness that enveloped their relationship. Ryan's anger often erupted over the smallest of things, an untidy kitchen, a misplaced tool. Each outburst was a reminder of the love that had once blossomed between them, now twisted into a cycle of control and resentment. Emily's attempts to reach out were met with dismissive waves of Ryan's hand, pushing her further into isolation. Despite her pain, Emily held on to hope, believing that perhaps her words might one day reach him. She dreamed of their laughter returning, of evenings spent beneath a starlit sky, sharing stories and dreams. But as Ryan's fury grew, her dreams became nightmares, a reflection of the love that had withered. Then came the day that would change everything. Ryan returned home, his brow furrowed, tension radiating from him like a storm cloud. He walked through the door, and Emily could sense his anger before he even spoke. She braced herself, preparing for the familiar confrontation, but this time, it felt different. As he stormed into the room, she took a deep breath and mustered her courage. "Ryan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, let's talk." "Talk?" he spat, incredulous. "What is there to talk about? You should know your place." His words cut through the air, heavy and suffocating. Emily's heart raced, but she pressed on. "I just want to understand. I want us to be happy again." "Happiness?" He laughed bitterly, the sound devoid of warmth. "You think happiness comes from being weak? You need to be stronger, Emily. You're not a child anymore. You need to learn your place." The words struck her like ice. She felt herself retreating, her heart sinking as she realized that the man she loved had become a stranger, someone who had no regard for her feelings or dreams. She could see the glimmer of what they once had, buried beneath layers of bitterness. Ryan's need for control eclipsed any spark of love that remained. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between them grew. The seasons changed outside, but inside their home, time stood still. Emily became a ghost, wandering through the halls of her own life, feeling the suffocating weight of Ryan's disapproval. He was like a storm that could erupt at any moment, leaving destruction in its wake. In the midst of this turmoil, Ryan was blind to the damage he was causing. His focus remained on his work, pouring himself into the forge, believing that strength and success defined a man. Each hammer strike echoed through the workshop, a relentless reminder of the love that had been overshadowed by his need for control. Emily's laughter, once a joyful symphony, faded to silence. Friends who once visited began to stay away, sensing the tension in the air. Emily found herself alone, yearning for connection, for understanding, but unable to break the invisible chains that bound her to Ryan's will. The spark that once ignited their love flickered precariously, and with each passing day, it threatened to extinguish entirely. As the last leaves fell from the trees, the cold wind howled outside, mirroring the turmoil within. One evening, as twilight descended, Emily gathered her courage once more. She wanted to confront the man she loved, to share her feelings one last time, hoping against hope that he might hear her. "Ryan!" she called softly, finding him at the forge, enveloped in a haze of smoke and fire. He turned, his expression hardening, but she pressed on. "We need to talk about us." "What about us?" he snapped, frustration lining his features. "I feel like I'm losing myself in this marriage. I just want to be seen. I want to be loved." Her voice trembled, desperation threading through her words. Ryan's expression hardened, his jaw clenched. "Love is not about being seen. It's about strength. You need to be stronger." Her heart shattered at his words, the weight of his indifference crashing down on her. The love she had fought for felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the reality of their broken bond. That night, as Emily lay awake, tears streaming down her face, she realized the truth. She had lost herself in a battle for love that Ryan never fought. In the dim light of their home, she understood that the laughter and joy they once shared had been replaced by resentment and pain. The realization weighed heavily upon her heart, but she couldn't bring herself to surrender just yet. Instead, she vowed to find a way to break free from the cycle of control that suffocated her spirit. As winter tightened its grip, Emily's heart remained a flickering candle, battling the darkness that enveloped their lives. She clung to the hope that one day, Ryan might see her, might understand the depth of her love, a love that deserved to be nurtured, not stifled. Yet, with each passing day, the shadows deepened, and she feared that the light within her might soon be extinguished forever. As winter settled over the town, an icy grip took hold of both the landscape and the hearts of its inhabitants. Ryan continued to lose himself in his work, driven by a misguided sense of pride and a need to prove his worth. He poured molten metal into molds, shaping it into intricate designs that captured the eye but failed to ignite any warmth within him. Each clang of metal against metal echoed in the silence of his home, a stark contrast to the laughter that once filled their lives. Emily watched from the sidelines, her heart aching at the distance that had grown between them. She felt like a ghost, haunting the remnants of a love that had once burned brightly. The fire in the forge mirrored the chaos in Ryan's heart, fueled by resentment and the fear of inadequacy. She longed for connection, for a glimpse of the man she had fallen in love with, but his anger loomed over them like a dark cloud, suffocating any attempts at reconciliation. Days turned into weeks, and the isolation began to take its toll on Emily. The spark of hope that had flickered within her slowly began to dim. Friends had ceased their visits, and the once vibrant conversations that filled their home had been replaced by a heavy silence. Emily often found herself standing in front of the mirror, searching for the woman she used to be, a woman full of dreams and laughter, now reduced to a mere shadow. One afternoon, as snow blanketed the ground outside, Emily stood at the kitchen window, watching the flakes swirl in the wind. She felt an overwhelming sense of loss, not just for her marriage, but for herself. She was losing her identity, trapped in a relationship that demanded her submission and stifled her spirit. With each passing moment, the fear of never reclaiming her voice grew stronger. That evening, Ryan returned home late, his clothes smeared with soot and his face taut with exhaustion. He barely acknowledged Emily as he walked past her, heading straight for the forge. The familiar ache of abandonment washed over her. She felt invisible, like a specter drifting through her own life. This time, the weight of his indifference pushed her closer to despair. "Ryan," she ventured softly, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "Can we talk?" He paused, but only for a moment, before dismissively waving his hand. "Not now, Emily. I have work to finish." His tone was curt, filled with the fatigue of a man consumed by his own demons. "Please," she pressed, desperation seeping into her words. "I can't keep living like this. We need to find a way back to each other." He turned sharply, eyes narrowing. "What do you want from me? You've been acting weak. This isn't the time for your softness." His words were like a dagger, aimed at her already fragile heart. "If you want to be strong, you need to learn that life is not about feelings." Emily's heart shattered at his response. The flicker of hope she had clung to extinguished under the weight of his disdain. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks, overwhelmed by the futility of her efforts. Ryan returned to his work, leaving her alone with her pain, the echoes of his harsh words resonating in her mind. That night, Emily curled up in bed, feeling the chill seep into her bones. She had tried so hard to reach him, to awaken the love they once shared, but every attempt had been met with resistance. As she lay there, she realized that she could no longer wait for Ryan to change. The burden of her silence was suffocating, and she needed to reclaim her voice, no matter the cost. The following days passed in a blur of heartache and introspection. Emily made a decision: she would no longer allow Ryan's anger to dictate her existence. She began to write in secret, pouring her feelings onto the pages of a worn journal. Each word became a lifeline, a way to articulate the emotions she had been silenced by for so long. She wrote about her dreams, her fears, and the love she once felt so deeply. As her words flowed, so did a sense of clarity. Emily began to understand that her strength did not lie in submission but in the courage to be true to herself. She was not weak for wanting love, she was brave for daring to seek it. Through her writing, she found solace and empowerment, realizing that her voice mattered. One day, while Ryan worked late at the forge, Emily took her journal and went for a walk. The world outside was silent, blanketed in snow. The cold air stung her cheeks, but she welcomed the sensation. It was a reminder that she was alive. As she walked, she found herself in a quiet park where children played, their laughter ringing through the air. The sight stirred something deep within her, igniting a flicker of hope. Seated on a bench, she began to read aloud from her journal, her voice carrying through the stillness. She spoke of love, of kindness, and the importance of being seen. The words felt liberating, a balm for her aching heart. As she read, she noticed a few mothers nearby, watching her with curiosity. They seemed to resonate with her sentiments, their expressions reflecting a shared understanding. Emily returned home that evening, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She realized that while she couldn't change Ryan, she could change her own narrative. She would no longer be a silent participant in her life, she would become the author of her own story. As the days passed, she continued to write and share her thoughts with those who would listen. Her voice began to gain strength, and so did her resolve. Emily found herself seeking out friends who had drifted away, reconnecting with them and sharing her journey. The laughter that had once filled her life slowly began to return, and with it, the essence of who she was. Meanwhile, Ryan remained oblivious to the transformation happening within her. He was consumed by his own struggles, locked in a battle against his insecurities and fears. His anger continued to manifest in his work, but for Emily, the chains were loosening. She was no longer defined by his expectations, she was reclaiming her life. One night, as Emily sat by the fire, her journal open in front of her, she felt a profound shift within. The warmth of the flames flickered against her skin, reminding her of the love that once thrived in their home. The realization struck her like lightning: love should not be a battleground, it should be a sanctuary. She made a vow to herself that night: she would continue to embrace her truth, no matter where it led her. And if Ryan could not meet her there, she would find the strength to move forward alone. As she drifted off to sleep, a sense of peace washed over her, the remnants of hope flickering like the flames in the hearth. The next morning, a new chapter awaited. Emily stood at the crossroads of her life, ready to embrace the unknown. She understood that while love had the power to heal, it also demanded respect. And in that understanding lay the key to her liberation, one she was determined to hold on to as she navigated the complexities of her relationship with Ryan. As she ventured into this new phase of her life, Emily was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, emboldened by her newfound voice and the clarity of her heart. Little did she know that the journey of self-discovery would lead her to an unexpected confrontation with Ryan, one that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, control, and the price of regret. As spring breathed life into the world outside, Emily stood at a pivotal moment in her life. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, her heart filled with the vibrancy of hope and possibility. The blossoms in the garden outside her window mirrored her transformation, once wilted and forgotten, now blooming with colors that demanded to be seen. Yet, even amidst this newfound brightness, a shadow loomed in the corners of her mind. Ryan's anger still lingered, a bitter reminder of the man she once loved and the pain he had caused. Despite her growth, she knew that confronting Ryan was inevitable. She had tried to communicate her feelings, but he had remained closed off, trapped in his cycle of resentment and control. For too long, Emily had allowed his emotions to dictate her own. Now, she had discovered the strength to reclaim her voice. The question remained, would Ryan be able to listen and learn, or was he too far gone in his bitterness? One evening, as dusk settled and painted the sky with hues of orange and purple, Emily summoned the courage to confront Ryan. He was in the forge, hammering away at a piece of metal, the clang of steel reverberating through the air. She approached him, her heart racing, each step echoing with the weight of her resolve. The light from the forge flickered across his face, revealing the tension that had become all too familiar. "Ryan," she began, her voice steady but soft. "Can we talk?" He paused, looking up with surprise, his brow furrowing. "About what? I'm busy." "Please," she pleaded, determination flaring within her. "It's important." Ryan set down his tools, irritation flashing in his eyes. "If you want to talk, make it quick. I have work to do." She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I can't keep living in this silence. We need to face what's happening between us. I refuse to let your anger dictate my life any longer." He crossed his arms, scoffing. "You think this is just about my anger? You're the one who can't handle reality. You want a perfect fairy tale, but life doesn't work that way." Emily's heart sank, but she pressed on. "It's not about perfection, Ryan. It's about respect, love, and understanding. You have to see how your words and actions affect me. You've hurt me, and I can't keep pretending it doesn't matter." Ryan's expression hardened, and for a moment, Emily feared she had crossed a line. He had always seen vulnerability as a weakness. But this time, she stood her ground, refusing to back down. "I want us to be happy again, but that can only happen if we confront the truth. Your anger has built a wall between us, and I don't want to be on the other side anymore." Silence stretched between them, thick and charged. Ryan's eyes flickered with a mixture of confusion and defensiveness. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "You think I don't care? I work hard to provide for us. What do you want me to do, Emily? Just give in to your whims?" "No, it's not about whims," she replied, her voice rising slightly. "It's about acknowledging each other as equals. I've spent too long losing myself in this relationship. I need you to meet me where I am, to acknowledge the pain we've both caused." The tension in the room shifted, the weight of her words settling over Ryan. He seemed to grapple with a torrent of emotions, anger, fear, regret, but beneath it all, Emily glimpsed the flicker of a man she once knew. The walls around his heart appeared to crack, if only slightly. "Emily," he said finally, his tone softening. I never meant to hurt you." His admission hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting them in that moment. "I understand that you're struggling," she replied gently. But you need to understand that I am struggling too. We can't continue down this path. It's tearing us apart. Ryan looked away, his hands clenched at his sides. The forge's heat suddenly felt stifling, mirroring the emotional turmoil within him. Emily felt her heart race as she watched him wrestle with the weight of her truth. She could see the internal conflict, the battle between the man he was and the anger that consumed him. Days turned into weeks, and their conversations continued, each one a delicate dance around the scars of their past. Ryan began to open up, revealing glimpses of vulnerability that he had long kept hidden. He spoke of his fears, his insecurities, and how they had shaped his behavior. Emily listened with compassion, understanding that healing would take time. Yet, the road to reconciliation was fraught with challenges. Ryan struggled to let go of the anger that had defined him for so long. Old habits die hard, and the familiarity of shouting matches and dismissive remarks often resurfaced during moments of stress. Emily fought against the urge to retreat, reminding herself of the progress they had made. She refused to allow their past to dictate their future. One evening, during one of their more heated discussions, Ryan's frustration boiled over. You think you can just change everything overnight? It doesn't work like that. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with small steps. Emily countered, her voice shaking with passion. We both need to meet in the middle. I want you to see me, to understand that I'm not just here to be your partner. I'm here to be your equal. Maybe I don't know how, he shouted, his eyes wild with frustration. I've always been the strong one. I don't know how to be anything else. Emily's heart ached for him, yet she felt a flicker of hope. And that's okay, Ryan. It's okay to not have all the answers. What matters is that we're willing to learn together. I want to support you, but I need you to support me too. The room fell silent, tension lingering like smoke in the air. Ryan dropped his gaze, defeated. I'm scared, Emily. I'm scared of losing you. But I don't know how to change. In that moment, she reached out and took his hand, grounding them both. We'll figure it out together, I promise. Just take it one day at a time. Let's build a new foundation, one that is rooted in respect and understanding. Ryan met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of recognition, a glimmer of the love they had shared before the darkness had settled in. They spent the next few weeks communicating more openly, addressing their feelings with honesty. They read books on relationships, attended workshops, and even sought the guidance of a counselor. It was a long and arduous journey, but every step forward felt like a victory. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Ryan turned to Emily, his expression serious. I want to apologize. For everything. I let my fears control me, and I took it out on you. You didn't deserve that. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she squeezed his hand. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. He continued. I don't expect things to be perfect, but I want to work on myself. I don't want to lose you again. Emily smiled, warmth spreading through her heart. You won't lose me. We're in this together now. As the seasons continued to change, so did their relationship. They learned to navigate their differences, supporting one another through the storms. The road was far from easy, and there were moments of struggle, but each challenge was met with a commitment to growth and understanding. Ryan's transformation didn't happen overnight, but he began to embrace vulnerability, acknowledging that it was a strength rather than a weakness. Emily continued to write, capturing their journey in her journal, a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and the importance of self-discovery. Through their shared efforts, the foundation of their relationship began to strengthen. With each passing day, they rebuilt the trust that had been fractured, finding joy in the small moments, laughter over dinner, quiet walks in the park, and sharing dreams that had once felt impossible. In the warmth of their renewed love, Emily discovered that healing was not a destination but a journey, one filled with challenges, triumphs, and an ever-deepening understanding of each other. Ryan, too, began to embrace this journey, his heart swelling with gratitude for the woman who had chosen to stay and fight for their love. Though their story was not without its scars, Emily realized that those scars told a tale of resilience and growth. They had weathered the storm together, emerging on the other side hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held. And as the sun set over the horizon, painting the world in shades of gold and warmth, she felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that love, when nurtured and cherished, had the power to heal even the deepest wounds. In the wake of her newfound resolve, Emily felt a flicker of determination rise within her. She had reclaimed her voice, and with it, a sense of purpose. However, the question loomed over her: what would happen when Ryan confronted the changes in her? The air in their home felt thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension, a chasm widening between their two worlds. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the floor, Ryan came home unusually quiet. He dropped his tools at the door, exhaustion written all over his face. Emily sensed that he was struggling, and yet, a part of her felt a strange sense of liberation in not having to carry his burdens anymore. She had learned that her happiness could not hinge on his moods. "Ryan," she began softly, her heart racing at the prospect of confronting the man she had loved so deeply. "Can we talk?" He looked at her, surprise etched on his features. The tone in her voice had changed. There was strength in it now. "About what?" he asked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his words. "About us," she replied, steadying her breath. "I need you to listen. Things can't stay the way they are." His expression shifted from surprise to anger in an instant. "And what do you think will change? You've always been weak, Emily. You'll go back to being quiet and submissive. Maybe you don't understand what weakness is," she countered, surprising even herself with her boldness. "I am no longer afraid of you or of losing you. I need you to hear me." Ryan scoffed, crossing his arms. "And what makes you think I'll listen? You think you've found your voice, but it's too late. You've always been my wife, bound to me. Bound by love, not by fear." Emily shot back, the fire in her chest igniting. "And I refuse to accept a life where my happiness depends on your anger." His jaw clenched at her defiance. She could see the wheels turning in his mind, the anger simmering beneath the surface. He was not accustomed to her standing her ground, and the shift in dynamics unsettled him. "You think you're stronger now? You think you can just walk away from everything?" "No," she replied firmly. "I want us to find our way back. But not if it means losing myself in the process. I deserve to be heard and respected." Silence hung heavy in the air, filled with the weight of their unspoken histories. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt a sliver of hope. Perhaps this confrontation was what they needed, a chance to break the cycle of resentment and despair. Yet, as Ryan's expression hardened, the reality of their situation loomed over them like a storm cloud. "You think you can change me, Emily?" he said, his voice low and menacing. "I am who I am. You knew that when you married me. I married a man who was once filled with love and dreams, Ryan," she countered, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear within her. "But I can no longer stay in a relationship that feels more like a prison." He stepped closer, the anger radiating from him like heat from the forge. "You're being dramatic. You think you can find love elsewhere? You'll see that no one will accept your weaknesses like I have. Then I will learn to accept myself," she replied, her heart pounding. "If you can't love me for who I am now, then maybe it's time for both of us to let go." In that moment, Emily felt a surge of courage, a determination to step into the unknown. The shadows of her past no longer held power over her. She was ready to face whatever consequences lay ahead, even if it meant leaving Ryan behind. As she looked into his eyes, she saw the anger but also the fear of losing control over her. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You think you can just walk away from me?" "No, Ryan," she replied, her voice steady. "I am choosing to walk toward myself. If you can't meet me there, I will find my own way." He stepped back, eyes narrowing as if he were seeing her for the first time. The shift in their dynamic rattled him, but he couldn't grasp the full extent of her transformation. His grip on her was slipping, and the realization sent shockwaves through him. The tension hung heavy between them, filled with the ghosts of their past. Emily felt a mixture of sadness and relief. She had finally confronted the man who had controlled her life, and now it was time for her to reclaim her future. The silence stretched on, fraught with unresolved emotions. Days turned into weeks as they navigated the fallout of that confrontation. Ryan continued to struggle with his emotions, retreating into his work, while Emily flourished in her newfound freedom. She immersed herself in her writing, finding a community of supportive friends who shared their own stories of love and healing. Her journal became a sanctuary, a place where she could explore her thoughts without fear of judgment. As winter turned to spring, a palpable shift took place in the air. The flowers began to bloom, and the town felt alive once more. Emily found herself walking through the vibrant streets, her heart lighter with each step. She had embraced her identity, and with it, the realization that she could find joy outside the confines of her marriage. Yet, despite her progress, Ryan remained a constant presence in her mind. The memories of their love haunted her, intertwined with the pain of their past. She couldn't shake the feeling of loss, of the dreams that had once been shared. Still, she understood that true love required respect, and that had been the missing piece between them. One afternoon, as Emily sat in a cafe with friends, she felt a sense of longing wash over her. The laughter around her was a reminder of what could have been. She realized that she would always carry a piece of Ryan in her heart, but she could no longer allow that love to define her existence. In a moment of clarity, she decided to reach out to him, to offer one last conversation, one where they could reflect on their journey together without the weight of anger. She needed closure, a chance to acknowledge the love they had shared and the paths they were now destined to take. When she called Ryan, his voice was low, wary. "What do you want, Emily?" "I want to talk," she said, her voice steady. "Can we meet?" There was a long pause before he replied. "Fine. But I'm busy, so make it quick." They agreed to meet at their favorite spot by the river, a place where they had once shared laughter and dreams. As Emily approached, her heart raced. She felt a mix of apprehension and hope, knowing this meeting could define their future. Ryan was already there, his silhouette framed against the water. The tension between them was palpable, a mix of unresolved emotions and lingering attachments. As she approached, the memories flooded back, the love, the joy, and the pain they had shared. "I didn't think you'd reach out," he said, his voice flat. "I needed to," she replied, taking a deep breath. "I wanted us to have closure." He crossed his arms, eyes locked on the river. "Closure? Or a chance to plead your case?" Emily hesitated, searching for the right words. "I want to acknowledge our past, the love we had and the pain we inflicted on each other. I've spent so long feeling like a victim in our relationship, but I realize now that I can't change you. I can only change myself." Ryan turned to her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "You're not the same woman I married." "I'm not," she admitted. "And that's a good thing. I'm learning to love myself, Ryan. I can't hold on to the hope that you will change if I don't change first." A silence enveloped them, filled with the echoes of their shared history. Ryan seemed to wrestle with his emotions, torn between anger and regret. "And what if I don't want you to change?" "Then we're at an impasse," she replied gently. "I can't go back to the way things were. It was suffocating." Ryan's eyes darkened, but beneath the anger, Emily saw a flicker of vulnerability. "You think you're better off without me? It's not about being better or worse. It's about understanding that love shouldn't feel like a prison," she said, her voice unwavering. "I want both of us to find happiness, even if it's apart." He looked away, grappling with the weight of her words. For the first time, Emily sensed that he was truly listening. The vulnerability she had seen in his eyes hinted at the possibility of growth, even if it was a small flicker in the shadows. "Do you still love me?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily's heart ached at the question. "I will always love the man I married. But I can't keep that love at the expense of my own happiness. It's time for us both to find our own paths." The air between them shifted, and in that moment she understood that love could exist alongside the truth of their situation. It was a bittersweet realization, a testament to the complexity of human emotions. They had shared a beautiful journey, but it was clear that the road ahead would lead them in different directions. "I don't want to lose you," Ryan admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "You won't lose the memories we shared," she replied softly. "But we must let go of what we cannot salvage." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the water, Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The conversation had brought them both to a crossroads, and while it was painful, it was also liberating. They had faced their fears, their regrets, and in doing so, discovered the strength to move forward. In the days that followed, Ryan began to change. The conversations they shared lingered in his mind, forcing him to confront the harsh reality of his actions. He had taken Emily's love for granted, and now that realization struck like a hammer against steel. He poured his grief into his craft, but this time, the creations reflected not just his pain but a newfound understanding of what love truly meant. He began to seek help, acknowledging that his past behavior stemmed from his own insecurities. As he opened up to those around him, he learned that vulnerability was not a weakness but a pathway to healing. Emily, on the other hand, embraced her independence, nurturing her passions and exploring the world outside their marriage. She wrote stories that captured the essence of her journey, a journey marked by resilience, self-discovery, and the triumph of the human spirit. With each word, she celebrated the woman she had become, unafraid to face the future alone. As time went on, Ryan and Emily discovered that their paths, though separate, were not devoid of love. They exchanged messages filled with warmth and encouragement, cheering each other on from a distance. Ryan shared his creations with her, and Emily sent him snippets of her writing, each piece a testament to their growth. The day finally came when they met again at the river. The atmosphere was different, lighter, filled with the promise of new beginnings. They embraced, a gesture filled with tenderness and understanding. "Look at us," Ryan said, a hint of a smile on his face. "We've come so far. Together yet apart," Emily replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. In that moment, they recognized the beauty of their individual journeys, the lessons learned from their shared past. They had loved deeply, but they had also learned to let go, to forgive, and to heal. As they stood by the river, the sun shining brightly, they understood that their story was not one of regret but of redemption, a reminder that love can take many forms, and sometimes the greatest act of love is to set someone free.